Now today we are not making just one recipe, we are doing a host of recipes because, including today, there are only 3 more Sundays left until Valentine's Day. My name is Taryn and I'm a professional baker from South Africa. I've baked some crazy, weird and wonderful cakes in my time, and now I hope to pass those skills on to you as I bake, make and create with the Supermoms Club. Hey guys, welcome to episode number 21. Can you believe we are at the end of January? It is the last episode of the month, and that means that we are going to be making our kid-friendly recipes. Now today we are not making just one recipe, we are doing a host of recipes because, including today, there are only 3 more Sundays left until Valentine's Day. So I thought I'd give you a whole lot of really fun and easy ideas for you to make either for your kids or with your kids. So our first recipe is Monster Rice Krispie treats. Aren't they cute? Then some marshmallow melts. Next we have some wafers of love. Then some red velvet cupcakes. And lastly some V-Day cake pops. And we can get straight into our first recipe, which is the Rice Krispie Monster Treats. And for these you'll need 2 tablespoons of butter, a 150-gram packet of marshmallows, 3 cups of Rice Krispies, white baking chocolate, little fondant eyes and some ice cream sticks. To start, I'm going to mark off 6 8cm by 6cm rectangles on some baking paper, obviously not on the waxy side, and then you can flip it around once you're done. And to start the recipe, pop your butter into a medium-sized pot on a stovetop on a medium heat, let it melt, then add your marshmallows and stir them until they've melted. Add the Rice Krispies and continue to stir until everything is combined. Remove from the heat and allow it to cool enough so that you can handle it with your hands. Then grab handfuls of your mixture, roughly 40 grams each. Give it a good squish together and then you can pop your ice cream stick into the middle of it and then place it down onto your parchment paper and use your template as a guide to mark out that rectangle. Keep squishing until you have a nice shape and it's tightly packed together. Then pop them in the freezer for around 5 minutes to get cold. So I have just melted some baking chocolate. I'm using baking chocolate because it really is quite forgiving and we're using a lot of it in all of these recipes. So now I'm going to give them a double dip with this chocolate, just the top third, and then place them into the freezer again for 2 minutes and give a second coat of the chocolate. Add some eyes, these are fondant eyes, but you can also use Smarties, and then mark the pupil with an edible pen. Look how gorgeous these are. So now we can get onto our second recipe, and that's the marshmallow melts. And for those you'll need some pretzels, baking chocolate, powdered colorant, marshmallows, love heart sweets, and assorted sprinkles. So I have my baking chocolate that was left over from the previous recipe. I'm reusing it. I've just added a little bit more to it. So now I'm going to color this. You can choose any color you like. And then you can grease some baking paper, place your pretzels on top of it, and then pour some chocolate into the center of each of them so that it fills in the holes, and then add a half a marshmallow on top. Pop them into the freezer for around 2 minutes because this really helps to solidify the marshmallow to your pretzel, because now we are going to tip them upside down, dip the marshmallow back into the melted chocolate, let it drip off, and then add a sweetie and some sprinkles on top. So I've let these dry and harden. They are looking a little bit funny, but this is where the best part comes for this recipe. We are going to pop these into the microwave on your very lowest settings for around 10 to 15 seconds. And then you can add some extra sprinkles and some hearts going all the way around them. How cool are these little guys? So now we can move on to our next recipe, and that is the wafers of love. And for those you'll need some wafer biscuits, baking chocolate, powdered colorant, and assorted sprinkles. So this next recipe is super easy. So all you need to do is pop your wafer biscuits into the freezer for a few minutes, get them nice and cold because they are going to be coated with some melted chocolate. I've made mine pink, and then you can sprinkle them with whatever goodies you like. I'm using some balls and hearts and sprinkles. Such a quick and easy V-Day treat. Moving on to recipe number 4, and that is our red velvet cupcakes. So for these you'll need 2 eggs, 3/4 of a cup of white sugar, 1½ teaspoons of vanilla essence, a pinch of salt, 3/4 of a cup of sunflower oil, 1/2 cup of milk with 1/2 teaspoon of white vinegar added to it, a cup of cake flour, 2 heaped tablespoons of cocoa powder, 2 teaspoons of red powdered colorant, 1¼ teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. So I have this chocolate left over from the previous recipe, and I'm going to actually use it now to make the toppers first for these cupcakes. So you can recolor it any color you like, and then I have this really nifty little template that you can grab from the link in the description and pipe over the top of them using a piping bag and a really small tip, and then pop them into the fridge to set. Right, so we can start mixing our cupcakes. The first thing you will do is pop your oven onto 180 degrees Celsius or 360 Fahrenheit, and then grab your eggs and pop them into your mixer and give them a good beat until they're really nice and fluffy like this. Then add your sugar and beat it until it becomes paler in color, and then you can add your vanilla essence and give one last quick beat. Now for our wet ingredients. So what I'm going to do is just add my vinegar into my milk and then give it a stir, and you can stir for a little bit until it just starts to thicken, and then you can add that into your mixture along with the oil and beat until it's combined. And now we can add our dry ingredients. So start with the flour, then your cocoa powder, just 2 heaped spoons like this, and your red colorant. I'm using some rubine red because I want these to be a really deep, rich color, and you can add a little extra colorant if needed, but your mix should look something like this. Then lastly, add in your baking powder and baking soda and give a quick beat to combine. The joys of working with red colorant, it seems to get everywhere. So from this recipe, I am going to make about 15 to 17 little cupcakes, and it's really important that you get the right amount of cupcake mixture into your cupcake casings. So I always use just a 1/4 cup like this one. I fill it and then use about 3/4 of that cup in each cupcake casing. Then pop them into your oven on the middle shelf for 12 to 15 minutes. Don't they look exquisite? Such a vibrant color. Now, traditionally for red velvet cupcakes, I would use a cream cheese icing, but it tends to pipe a little flat, so I want something a little more structurally sound. So I'm going to do a butter and cream cheese mix. So 120 grams of each, and you can pop that into your mixer and give a good beat until they're nicely combined, and then add 480 grams of icing sugar and continue to beat until it's smooth. Then transfer your icing into an icing bag and use an 8-star tip, and to pipe, start in the middle, gently press down, work all the way around the outside edge, and then pull your icing tip back into the center and gently release. And now you can top them off with those love toppers and some sprinkles. So just be really careful when you are handling them, because obviously the chocolate is very delicate. And then pop some sprinkles on top. So you may have noticed that I've only done 10 of these cupcakes, and that is because the other 7 are going to be used for our next recipe, which is the cake pops. And for these cake pops, you'll need 7 cupcakes, a 1/4 cup of buttercream icing that's ready mixed, baking chocolate, powdered colorant, assorted sprinkles, and some sucker sticks. So the first thing I'm going to do is just remove my casings from my cupcakes and then pop them into a bowl and get my hands in there and make crumbs out of them. Then you can add your icing and continue to mix it until it becomes nice and squishy between your hands. If your mixture is a little dry, you can add an extra tablespoon or 2 of your icing, give it another mix, and then pop it in the freezer to get cold for around 5 minutes. So now I can start forming my little balls, and I'm going to measure out just a tablespoon and a teaspoon of the mixture, and then give it a really good squish together, and you can start forming your ball. So you should get around 12 little cake pops from your 7 cupcakes. And now I am going to use just some of my chocolate that was left over from the previous recipes and some of these little sucker sticks. And then you can just dip the end of your stick into the chocolate and then very gently pop it into your cake pop. And then I'm going to set that back down again so that it can set. and then pop it into some polystyrene and place them in the freezer for around 10 to 15 minutes. So now we can get these covered in some chocolate. So I've just popped my chocolate into little measuring cups like this. It does make it a lot easier because it's a smaller area to work in. And then you can dip and turn your cake pop going all the way around, and then continue to turn it and spin it as you shake off all of that excess chocolate. So just keep turning and spinning and shaking all in one motion. Then drizzle with melted chocolate and sprinkle with sprinkles. Don't they look gorgeous? So a whole heap of Valentine's Day treats. Now all I need to do is find my kids and we can have an early celebration. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Until next week, take care and God bless.